it's just so interesting on how we can pull the happiness lever. It starts by actually a good definition, which is not feelings. Feelings are evidence of happiness. And thank God happiness isn't a feeling. Can you imagine going through life chasing a feeling?
Yeah.
That's awful. It's like, if it feels good, do it. Or if it feels bad, make it stop. It's a terrible life strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Happiness and its feelings are associated with three tangible phenomena in our lives that we can actually understand and manage: enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. Those are the three things that we need in balance and abundance. Think of these as the macronutrients of happiness, the protein, carbohydrates, and fat of happiness. If you don't have protein and carbohydrates and fat and balance and abundance, all kinds of weird things are going to happen to you, and you're not going to be as healthy as you should be, and you won't feel good. Same thing is true. You need to enjoy your life, you need to get satisfaction from your accomplishments, and you need to have a deep sense of meaning. And each one of these is a big challenge. When I meet somebody through a series of structured questions, I can figure out if there's a problem along one of these macronutrient dimensions. And it turns out that there's some very easy interventions that we can make across all three. And I'll give you an example. The first one is enjoyment. And I say, do you enjoy your life? And they'll think about their little pleasures. I say, that's not it. Pleasure is not a secret to happiness. Pleasure is the fast road to obsessive, compulsive activity and addiction. Why? Because all pleasure is a phenomenon from the limbic system of your brain saying, do more of that thing because you're more likely to survive and pass on your genes if you get those calories, if you have that sex, whatever it happens to be. The way that you can actually turn that into a source of happiness is by mixing in two ingredients with your pleasure: people and memory. Never do something that gives you pleasure alone. That's the rule of thumb. If you're doing it alone, it's a problem. So Anheuser-Busch does a beer ad. They never have in the beer ad
A guy drinking in his closet.
Yeah, a guy pounding a 12-pack in his apartment alone. You know why? Because that's pleasure, and that actually leads to addiction. It's problematic. They always have an ad of a guy cracking a beer with his buddies, people, and doing something he's going to remember. Memory. That's the secret to it. So I'll take a survey of people's habits. Now, this is the reason that pornography is a big problem, right? You're not consuming it in public with friends to make a memory, for God's sake. It's just some sort of
Very
weird.
rarely.
That's a pretty weird thing to do, right? And that's one of the reasons. And I mean, it hits the dopamine lever. I mean, they all are neurophysiologically similar phenomena. They hit dopamine over and over and over again, and they ruin your life because they become addictive. They become monomaniacal, and they're not the secret to happiness. If you're at 3:00 in the morning in Vegas pulling the lever on the slot machine by yourself, that's not the secret to happiness to anybody I know. And I've never heard somebody say, you know what gives my life happiness? Methamphetamine. Never been said. Right? And the reason for that is because these are drugs. People say drugs of abuse. No. These are drugs of pleasure. Let's not lie about it. They give you pleasure. And pleasure alone without memory is a problem. This is a very practical example of how we can use the science and turn it into a set of guideposts for our life.
Mm-hmm. And so you have enjoyment, which you clarify.
Satisfaction and meaning are next.
Yes. How would you make satisfaction granular? Because I think about satisfaction, I'm like, I might conflate being satisfied with doing, say, a large project with some form of meaning. I can see how I might get my wires crossed.
Right.
So
right.
How should we think about these two in your
Satisfaction
framework?
is achieving something with struggle.
Mm-hmm.
It really is that project that you're talking about, which it will give you meaning as well. The project per se can actually cross the boundaries across the macronutrients, just like something that you eat has more than one macronutrient.
Mm-hmm.
But satisfaction per se is doing something that takes effort and expending the effort. So if my graduate students, they cheat to get an A on an exam in my class, they'll get the grade, but they won't get the satisfaction. The satisfaction comes from the pain. This is one of the paradoxes of life. You gotta suffer to get the satisfaction. You gotta defer the gratification. When somebody's on the pleasure mill, by the way, they also don't get satisfaction from anything because they can't defer the gratification anymore. These problems bleed into each other.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that you find is that people who are very accomplished, the people you are good at satisfaction because you can defer your gratification and do long-term projects. You're a satisfaction guy. The problem for you and me and a lot of people are going to watch your show because they want to be better. I mean, nobody's watching this show just for giggles. They're watching this show because
funny enough.
they're watching your show because they want to be better in their lives. And so they're going to be good at deferring their gratification and doing hard things.
Or at least aspire to.
Totally. I mean, it's like, I've read your books. It's not anything. It's like, it's interestingly deceptive. The 4-hour fill in the blank, the early books, right? It makes it sound like it's a hack and it's easy.
Yeah.
No,
it's not.
No, it's not. The 4 hours is hard, is the point. That those 4 hours are going to hurt.
Yeah, and there's a lot of front loading. There's also hard work without forethought and planning. So there is built into any of those books a strategic deferral.
Yeah, for sure. So that's what brings satisfaction. Here's the problem with satisfaction. And this goes back to where we started the conversation. Mick Jagger saying, I can't get no satisfaction. That's wrong. You can't keep no satisfaction. That's why you try and you try and you try. And there's a reason for that. You know, neuroscientists talk about homeostasis, which is a phenomenon of always going back physically and emotionally to your baseline. And there's a reason for that, because you need to go back to the baseline in your life so you can be ready to react to the next set of circumstances. If emotionally you were going to be bummed out for the rest of your life, you'd become immobilized. And if you felt super happy when something good happened, you wouldn't be in the hunt anymore. Mother Nature wants you to think that you're going to feel this emotion for the rest of your life so that you will either avoid one thing or pursue something. But she wants to fool you and send you back again and again and again and have you never figure it out. Man, if I get that car, I'm going to love it. If I move to California, I'm going to enjoy the sunshine for the rest of my life. Turns out you get 6 months, by the way, of enjoying weather, but the taxes are forever. And that experience of never learning is called the hedonic treadmill, and it's unbelievably painful. The way to solve that problem is haves divided by wants. The way to get real satisfaction is not having more but wanting less. And that's the reverse bucket list, et cetera. That's the set of habits that helps you dominate that particular science and short circuit the loop that you're on because of Mother Nature's plans for you, which are not really in your happiness interest. She doesn't care if you're happy, by the way.
No. Yeah, producing progeny is not dependent on
it's
big
like
smiles.
It's DNA, man. It's all survival to pass on your genes. And, that's great for the propagation of the species. It's not good for, pursuing the divine path.